Hello, Dr. Stephen Mujay here. I'm recording this video or this recording on access control list, and I'll go over how they work and how you can configure them on the routers. All right, so I'm going to be going back and forth between this document, which has which has the notes, as well as this network that I set in Packet Tracer. So just to give you a heads up in terms of what I'll be doing. And this document, I'll be also posting it on Canvas, so you will have access to it. All right, so access control list are basically a list of conditions that allow or deny packets. If I were to go on this network, you notice that there are two networks. I have the student network on this side, and then on the other side, I have the staff network. So these networks, as of right now, are set to communicate with each other. Obviously, a dynamic routing has been set. There is a link between the routers which connects them, and on the routers, I've set dynamic routing so that if I were to jump on this network, on this laptop here, on the student network with the IP address, as you can see, the IP address for that PC, for that laptop is 192.168.1.10. And then on this side, on the staff network, there is the staff server with the 192.168.2.2. You can see that that's a different network. So if I can do ping 192.168.2.2, all right, you can see that there is a connection there. I can ping the server from the student network. So imagine that you want to set some conditions that can restrict communication from taking place from the student network to the staff network. That's what access control list can be used for, and that's what I'll go through. So the access control list, the restrictions can be based on the port numbers. You can restrict it based on port numbers. You can restrict based on IP addresses. You can restrict based on remote connections, Telnet or SSH. You can configure the restrictions based on those factors. You also need, when setting access control list, the direction is also important, whether it's inbound or outbound. I do have right here, as you can see, you can deny students. This is not the exact syntax, but you can deny students from surfing the internet. You know, the traffic can be inbound, incoming, or it can be outbound. You can allow all traffic to surf the internet. All right. So if you wanted to restrict students from, this is not necessarily the internet, from accessing this network, this would be outbound traffic from this network, but as it reaches the staff network, that's going to be inbound. So that's going to be really important as you set access control lists, because that has to be specified, the direction. You will also have to set the specific first, okay? For instance, in this example that I have here, if you switch this and in the access control list, if you start with allow all students to surf the internet, that's going to be, this one will be processed first. And when it's processed first, guess what? Everyone is in. And by the time it gets to this one, it's not even gonna make any difference at all. because everyone has been processed. So the order of your access control entries really make a difference. You want to start with the specific ones first. So which is what I have here, denying students, that's listed first, that's permitted first, and then after that's processed, then you can have this entry which allows everybody in. Otherwise, if you have them the other way, that's not going to work. There are different types of access control lists. There are standard access control lists. Then there is extended and named. We'll focus mostly on the standard access list. And the standard access list restrict based on source IP. So they look at the source IP address. That's what they use to restrict traffic. If we were to come over here, we could restrict based on the whole network ID, or we can restrict based on specific IP addresses within this network. That's what standard access lists do. Standard access lists, they cannot restrict based on port. So if you wanted to restrict based on port, then you shouldn't use a standard access list. Standard access list should be placed as close to the destination as possible. All right, what does that mean? Let's say we want to restrict 192.168.1.10 from accessing this server here. You want to place that access control list as close to the destination as possible. All right, so how do you do that? If we were to go on this router on this interface and block traffic coming from this IP address, what that will mean is this laptop is not going to be able to communicate at all. So that's why it makes sense to place it close to the destination so that this laptop can still get access to all the other resources. All right. It is defined by name or number, and there is an access control list ID of between 1 and 199. You can also use 1300 to 1999, but for the most part, it's going to be between 1 and 99. So we'll see how that works in a little bit here. And there is an example down below here of an access control list. So in this access control list, we are denying the whole network. It's deny. And as we do that, there is the network ID listed here. And then we also have the wildcard, which is the inverse mask, the mask that has been written in reverse. Notice that the wildcard is 0.0.0.255. So what do these zeros mean? This 0 means it's an exact match. So you look at the 192 octet, when you have a 0, it's going to look at it and that's going to be matched exactly the way it is. The same thing with this 1968, that's going to be an exact match. That's why we have the second octet in the wildcard as 0. The 1, that's another exact match. So as traffic is coming from this network, the 192.168.1, those are going to be exact matches based on this wildcard. The last octet, which is a 0, which is signified by the 255, it means I don't care. For that could be a 1, that could be a 2, that could be a 200. The 255 means I don't care. As long as it's within that range, any number is going to be denied. So if I were to write an access control list to deny 192.168.1.20, I would probably change this wild mask to all zeros. And all these zeros means I'm going to deny this exact match, 192.168.1.0. So keep that in mind. The 255, that's a range. Any numbers between 0 and 255 are going to be affected by that access list, control list. So keep that in mind as far as the wildcard, because that's really important. And then, of course, after you do that, that is followed by the access list 1, permit any, to allow anything else outside of that. And then that's followed by the IP access group 1 out on the interface that you want to apply that access list on. Real quick, on named access list, the difference is the syntax is slightly different. You don't just write IP access list. You begin by IP access list. You have the word standard if you're writing a standard access control list, or extended if you're using extended, and then that is followed by the block, by the name, specific name. If we are blocking the students, this would be the name of that access list. In some situations, that might make sense, because as you go back, you might not be quite familiar with what does this one signify. Whereas using specific names, you can always go back, and when you're going back, the name will show you exactly what that means, right? So this is the deny. That aspect is similar from what we have done with the numbered access list. You deny the IP address followed by the wildcard, and then the permit any, and of course that will be followed by the IP access group out or in, and that this line here basically lets the interface whether the traffic that is being blocked is incoming or outgoing. It's not enough to simply have the access control list. You do need to specify with the port where that control is going to be restricted. All right, so that's access control list. Real quick basics in terms of how that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this, and then there will be another second recording. In the second recording, I will get into Packet Tracer and actually see how this works in real time. So take a break and then come back and watch the second video.